Let's take a good look at this Waxman tax attack vendetta against American corporate bookkeeping and SEC legal rulemaking. Here now is Democratic strategist Richard Socarides, if I have it right. Richard, good to see you.
Yes, you do.
All right, buddy. He's a former senior advisor to President Bill Clinton. And our old friend, CNBC contributor Don Luskin of Trend Macro. Richard, I'm so happy to see you, and I want to begin with you. I cannot believe that Waxman is waging a vendetta against sound bookkeeping rules that are being changed to score lower profits on the basis of a tax credit that was removed from Waxman's precious Obamacare. How can this be? He has only himself to blame.
Listen, I don't know where to start. You're like on fire tonight. I mean, I think Congressman Waxman has invited some of these people in to explain why their cost estimates are so out of whack with the estimates from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. I mean, AT&T wants to take a charge of $1 billion because of health care reform, and I think that implicit in some of this is a concern that some of these companies may be trying to mislead people or trying to scare them a little bit about what this is going to cost. Look, as we go forward, there are going to be adjustments, there are going to be tweaks to this, but you know, this bill should not, right off the bat, result in a $1 billion charge for AT&T, for example.
Well, Don Luskin, okay, Richard asked a good point, so I'm going to ask you, Don, who do you trust? Do you trust the Congressional Budget Office macro projections, or do you trust these corporations, publicly held companies that are trying to abide by the post-Enron SEC disclosure laws? This removal of the prescription drug tax credit changes their entire tax income and profit outlook. Who do you trust, Don Luskin?
You know, I'd like to reframe it, Larry. It's not a question of who do you trust. Let's just look at what the requirements of the law are. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which Congressman Waxman voted in favor of in 2002, prescribes 7-figure fines and multi-year jail sentences for CEOs and CFOs who knowingly make false or misleading financial statements. Now, the CBO and the Joint Tax Committee produced this document that I'm holding in my hand that shows that there is a $4.5 billion hit, a tax, a revenue raiser, which they're proud of. That's how they're paying for this, because of the removal of this subsidy for corporations who offer their own prescription drug benefits to their employees and retirees, and keeps them out of Medicare Part D. That is removed in this new law. That's where they get the $4.5 billion. That is now the law of the land. In order to avoid making false and misleading financial statements under Sarbanes-Oxley, which Waxman voted for, these executives have been advised that they have to recognize these losses. They are doing it within the framework of their pension and benefit accounting, which looks at the lifetime value of these costs.
See,
now, wait a second. I'm not quite done. I'm not quite done. Excuse me. Just let me just finish this point. Now, let us go to the November letter of the CBO to Senator Bai on this subject, which Waxman quotes in his virtual subpoena to these executives, requiring not only their presence but their providing of emails. Now, what this says is that there will be a 0 to 3% reduction in premiums for large plans, but Sarbanes-Oxley does not permit CBO estimates to be used in generally accepted accounting principle financial filings.
But listen, I don't think anybody's accused anybody of any wrongdoing here, at least not so far. I mean, Waxman has invited these companies to come in. You know, they've got lawyers, they've testified before, it's not really such a big deal, and explain where they come up with these cost estimates. And maybe we'll have some, we'll shed some light on this.
Richard, my friend, this is not late afternoon tea and cookies, as you well know. These are not little
It's an opportunity for them
to English sandwiches where the crust is cut off.
It's an opportunity for them to highlight their products and services.
Richard, my friend, this is a court of Star Chamber. You know that. He's going to try to put them on the hot seat. And look, he has only himself to blame. Here's the irony of this whole thing. By removing this tax credit for the prescription drugs for the retirees, what these guys are going to do, if they are forced to do so, they're going to take them off the rolls and they're going to push them onto Medicare, and the costs are going to explode, and it's going to blow the deficit numbers right out of the water. But we knew this, didn't we, Richard?
No, we did not know that, and I don't think that's what's going to happen. I mean, we knew that these contracts that these companies negotiated with their retirees, and through union collective bargaining, were going to have to be factored in, and we're going to have to be readjusted. And listen, for sure, there are going to be some reallocations with this new health care bill, and that's what this is all about. I mean, the status quo on health care in this country was so unacceptable that we could not go forward.
So why
and in
doesn't
fact, it's going to cost some people it's going to cost some companies some more money, and they're going to have to be readjustments and reallocations.
So why do you object when they make public financial statement filings saying that's going to cost them that money?
I don't think anybody's objecting.
Henry
I would say,
Waxman's objecting.
well, he hasn't objected yet. I think he's asked for an explanation, which the country is entitled to.
He has commanded their presence. He has demanded that they provide emails between senior executives on this subject. This is the language of subpoenas, my friend. This is the McCarthy era.
By the way, he wants internal documents. I really object to that. And as Don said, Richard, I mean, this is look, the SEC, the Sarbanes-Oxley post-Enron, trying to clean up all these income, non-cash income, and balance sheet issues. Mr. Waxman was in favor of this.
Well, listen, I don't think any of these companies, are nervous about testifying before Congress. I mean, they testify before Congress every day.
It's a gigantic waste of their time. These are the guys who ought to be going out trying to pull this country out of recession, and instead of having to fly coach to bow before this poodle representing Malibu and Beverly Hills.
Listen, I don't think it's a waste of time.
It's a complete waste of the time of the most valuable people in America.
Well,
and it demonizes
we'll have to debate
them. They
whether
are American heroes. They should be celebrated.
I don't think they'll be demonized.
You really don't?
No, I do not think they'll be demonized.
Look me straight in the eye through the camera and tell me you do not think Waxman is going to attack them and demonize them. Seriously, my friend.
If they have nothing to hide, they will do just fine. And they have terrific lawyers and terrific accountants. And if their numbers are accurate, we'll all be smarter and better informed about it.
And this couldn't have been done behind closed doors with staff-to-staff meetings. It had to be done in a full court of Star Chamber, right?
Well,
it couldn't have been done behind closed doors just to check the numbers. You had to have a public hearing. What's going to happen in this public hearing?
I think we're all going to learn. I think we're all going to learn a little bit more about what health care is going to mean for everybody. I mean, these are very important issues. These are important issues of our time. We have a whole new way of doing this, and why shouldn't companies who are claiming these new exorbitant costs be called in front of Congress to explain it? I think it's totally appropriate.
Don Luskin, this tax credit subsidy was put in 2003 for the misbegotten Bush prescription drug entitlement, but it's been on the books now for quite a few years, 7 years and growing.
That's right.
And I want to ask you, what happens to these companies? Will they, at the end of the day, have to end it or reduce it, which would put these retired workers onto the Medicare and blow up the Obamacare costs? And or, Don, are they just going to have layoffs and or maybe move offshore? I mean, every action has consequences. Every government action has consequences. How do you read this?
Well, I don't see how it does the American worker any good, right? I mean, they're already getting the best deal possible. They're getting a very generous deal from their employers that's in excess of the benefits they could get themselves through Medicare Part D if they had to do that themselves. So they only stand to lose. Now, these companies want to retain a good workforce, and this is an incentive they offer them, so not every one of them is just going to dump it in the river overnight. But believe me, it's not going to get better from here. It's only going to get worse from here.
Listen, let's remember why we did this. We did this because American citizens in this country got sick and couldn't see a doctor and couldn't get health care because there were millions, tens of millions of Americans in this country who couldn't get health care when they got a doctor.
Those soppy talking points every time a topic comes up that you don't have a specific answer to.
I don't want to debate the whole health care thing. I want to say.
Oh no, but this is what we should talk about. We should talk about there's a new day. There are going to be adjustments and realignments.
So anything any politician does to harass any capitalist is okay in the name of this jihad in favor of the...
Gentlemen, I want to offer you both, Don Luskin, Richard Socrates, when the day of the hearing, I want you both to come on.
All right,
we'll play some tape. We'll take a look at it. You're great. Richard Socrates.
I think these companies will do just fine.
Luskin. I'm not so sure about that, but we will see. Coming